It has been basically one whole year since we last met. Mostly new, same faces. We'll address that here in a minute, but glad to see everybody again, and glad that we could come together this afternoon and talk about some of the city's traffic items. Go ahead and begin with a roll call. My name is Anthony Ladd, and I am the Public Works Division Manager in the Public Services Department for the City of Kalamazoo.
I'm Leslie Hoffman. I'm with Central City Parking.
I'm Christina Anderson. I'm the City Planner, Community Planning and Economic Development Department.
Scott Vander Indy, Executive Lieutenant from Public Safety, oversee the Patrol Division.
And I'm Dennis Randolph, Traffic Engineer for 2.5 weeks.
Appreciate it, everybody. As was mentioned, in your packet was the agenda for today. Would someone like to set a motion to approve the agenda for today?
I'll make that motion.
Anybody second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor, I assume unless anyone says otherwise, it is approved. Next item is the minutes from almost exactly a year ago of our March 12th, 2020 meeting, also included in your packet. Were there any revisions? Otherwise, a motion for approval for those?
I'll make that motion.
Seconded?
Second.
Here we go. If there are no objections, we'll assume that that is approved as well. Moving right into new business, as mentioned in roll call, I would like to introduce Mr. Dennis Randolph, our newest staff member here in Public Works Division. Most of you know that we were without a full-time traffic engineer for almost 2 years. So, you know, I pretended to be one when I had to, and we got by, but we're very excited to have Dennis join our team and can really devote someone full-time to the city's traffic needs and, our transportation plans in the future. We're just really excited to have him on board with all of his experience, and welcome. I look forward to working with you and all the good things we have in store.
Looking forward to it.
Great. Really, our main reason for meeting today, besides introducing Dennis to the group, is to discuss a new, it's labeled as a traffic calming process. I think that it's a lot more than that. Really speaks to, in this last year, Public Works and Community Planning and Development have been working closely together, and also with neighborhood associations and residents and special interest groups to develop a formal plan to introduce and pilot traffic calming methods in the city. At least in the last year or so, we've really put a lot of effort and thought into different traffic calming methods and trying to spend time understanding the needs of the road type, understanding the issues that residents are seeing, and then trying to properly assert traffic calming methods for the problems that we're seeing, and realizing that there's not a one size fits all method, but also understanding that we do have issues in the city that do need to be addressed, whether it's, it could be speeding, it could be distracted driving, it could be, dangerous curves. There's any number of issues that we get complaints about in the city, and leaning on that engagement with neighborhood associations through community planning and their conversations, we realized that we have an avenue to, understand the issues and make sure that what's getting implemented is something that the neighborhood or the community supports. That was really the driver for kind of creating this formal process. So Christina's going to go into more detail about this process, and really the reason we bring that in front of you all today, kind of representing all the different aspects of traffic needs here in the city, to get your input and ultimately, hopefully, receive kind of a formal approval from Traffic Board for this process moving forward. So Christina, if you want to go ahead and.
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. A copy of the draft traffic calming process was included in your packets. It is definitely still a draft. Let me say that off the top. As Anthony introduced, definitely in last year, although not new to the last year, it's been increasing. We have been receiving more and more comments about the request for traffic calming in our neighborhoods. And so prior to her departure, Katie Riley, our neighborhood activator, put together this process for us so we can start to test out, the engagement piece, understanding what the issue is, engaging on both the initial issue as well as potential solutions, and then figuring out how we go to the implementation phase. And so that's really what this process outlines for us. You are able, it kind of has two points of entry, one which I think we can kind of divide into two. So we are in the process of doing neighborhood plans around the city. I think we have 7 done, and prior to Katie's departure, we had 5 more that we're about to start, which represents about half of our neighborhoods, or close to half of our neighborhoods. So when traffic calming is discussed as an issue, has a goal and action items in the neighborhood plan, we can bring them through this process to figure out what to help focus on what the issue is and help determine potential solutions. You could also enter this process if you are a neighborhood who is just starting or is partway through the neighborhood planning process. If there is clear coalescence and clear support through the early neighborhood planning discussions about traffic issues in general. And so that is an avenue to kind of enter this process. And then finally, one that kind of matches more of the first with, kind of a neighborhood driven in neighborhoods that don't have plans yet, where we start to hear comments, we can figure out a path to work directly and get engagement and get consensus to move through this process. So there's a couple of different ways of entering. The process calls out a series of meetings that occur at the beginning to make sure that we fully understand what the issue is, how we study it, including whether it's a speed study or counts or observations, understanding, the land uses around it and destinations and generators to understand if we're by a school or a park, those type of issues. We have the process outlines how we can engage at a door-to-door level, making sure that on the impacted streets, we are knocking on doors or sending postcards to make sure everyone is aware of what issues have been brought up and how we proceed. And we also include, once we get through that, a process for how we start to test what some of the solutions might be, right? And, you know, there's not one solution that's going to be right everywhere. We have lots of options in front of us, including signage and education. All the way up to something that is something that requires construction, like a speed hump, and a variety of things in between, or chicane, and lots of stuff in between. And we will work with what this process lays out is how we work with the community to figure out what exactly the issue is, target the location, and figure out how we can come up with a solution. And sometimes that may also include something that is iterative, meaning that we might test different solutions and do it in a low budget way to see if they work for this location, if they need to be adjusted before moving into anything permanent. And so that's what's outlined in this document. We have the opportunity this year, before Katie left, we kind of vetted this policy a bit internally. We went through our neighborhood plans that were completed and tried to pull out a few locations where we could test this policy to figure out, or process to figure out if it works. And based on the neighborhood plans that were completed up until that point, it was the areas of focus that we had tentatively selected for this year are a few streets in East Side. There are a couple intersections in Oakwood, and then Greenleaf, right? Greenleaf in Parkview Hills, as potential locations where we could run this process, where we had heard from the residents through neighborhood plans that they had traffic concerns, that what they wanted to discuss further. And so that is kind of the general overview. Does anyone have any questions on either what I said or from your review of the policy?
And I'd just like to add to that too, that
Anthony, I'm sorry, you're a little quiet.
Sorry, I just want to add that when we say to see if something works, there, aside from anecdotal information and the stories we hear, we intend on doing pre and post implementation traffic counts, volume studies, speed studies, to kind of have some other metrics to see how effective those methods are.
Yes, thank you for bringing it up. That's a really critical point, because we want to make sure that we are keeping touch with the residents in that area, especially afterwards, to see what the impact is, to determine if do we need to make adjustments? Did we work, and did it work, and do we just need to monitor it in the future? That is an important piece. So I would expect this year, and the other reason why we're kind of bringing it before this board is that the traffic board in the policy or in the process has been kind of listed as a staff board, as a point of contact to discuss how we proceed with potential projects moving forward. So we want to make sure that this board is familiar with it. We're waiting to have this discussion until Dennis joined us in his role as traffic engineer. We also will very soon have a transportation planner on board, hopefully within another 6 to 8 weeks. Together, those two staff plus Anthony and I will be able to kind of kick off this process, likely in the 3 locations that I mentioned. So starting off with engagement and understanding the issue and doing some studies.
And ultimately, the traffic board will be making the selections of those, or I guess of the prioritization. Is that correct, as it's written currently?
Yeah, as it's written currently, if we were to get multiple cases that came in all at once, this board would help us prioritize those. I would also expect that we would have discussions amongst this board as to, if a couple of different solutions are available, what might work best How do we want to go about it? I can see that board being part of this, part of the discussion for that as well. And, you know, the reason for that is, you know, partially because this board includes a representative from KDPS. And we really need to make sure that this is, you know, that planning and public services aren't working in silos, even if it's a joint silo, without KDPS as it relates to traffic issues. And so we want to make sure that the three departments are absolutely all on the same page, understand what the issues are, what the concerns are, and moving forward. And so, you know, because this board has that representation, this is a logical place to come for those discussions.
So are there any, I mean, I know, I don't know if you might have reviewed this prior to this meeting, but are there any questions or comments right off the bat from board members? Because otherwise I would just kind of probably propose that we come back, you know, maybe the next month and see if there's any concerns or if we can answer any questions in the meantime and make any revisions. But is there any direction or any concern right off the bat that, you know, that we could go look to make revisions or maybe explain a little further?
You know, Anthony, the only thing I was going to mention was this. I've been going through, as you know, and kind of gathering the engineering side of a lot of the devices that would be used or available to use. And so I've got a collection of quite a few, but I think I'm looking for ideas. And if you're aware of devices that have been used somewhere, what I'd like to do at this point in time is continue to gather them. And I can also work out or verify the engineering side of them, you know, the geometries that we use, the kind of devices and the signing and things like that. So those details are our concern. So if you have ideas or you come across a device that somebody used out in Arizona or up in Maine or something like that, that we could at least have, I'd like to have a toolbox full of ideas. But I need to make sure that they actually work. So if you've got them, I'd be interested in knowing about them.
No, that's a great point. And I think that, you know, eventually as we, you know, are getting further into this traffic calming process, or the attention that traffic calming's been getting these last, you know, year or so, I think we're headed towards being able to have, you know, a document that has those engineering details for each of those traffic calming methods. And while I don't think we necessarily want neighborhoods telling us what traffic calming method they want, I think that would be beneficial to show them, you know, what's possible, what's in our toolbox, what is possible, you know, worth consideration. I think it works best when we are told what problems they're specifically seeing so that we can, you know, diagnose that. But I do think it is good to have that information for neighborhood associations and others, just to make that information public, what traffic calming methods we're willing to consider.
And I just forwarded to both you and Dennis an example project from South Bend, Indiana, where they looked at a neighborhood, you know, did an engagement process, pinpointed the problems, came up with a bunch of different solutions based on each problem in each location within this wider neighborhood. What I like about it was how they tested it and how they, you know, used community engagement, community assistance, and low budget tools to test the different to test the tools that they had thought would work. You know, how they tweaked them to make sure that they would work before they did anything permanent. So just putting that out there. In terms of, you know, the action for the next month, I think it's fine to come back in April and discuss this. At that point, I'd like us to come to a conclusion so we can get to work. because that will put us already into April. We were fortunate enough to have some funds budgeted for this work this year. Just want to make sure that we are going to be able to start the process in a timely manner to test and see if this process is the right process and to figure out what we need to change and how we shift.
Well, and I know, you and I have talked about too, we don't necessarily have to have this process set in stone or, exactly the way we want it, knowing there's going to be some things that we tweak over time. Yeah, I mean, the closer we are to that, the better off we'll be. But, we just wanted to bring this to the board to kind of show you what we've been working on. And then also, to take this message beyond the board to the community to show them, that we are taking these considerations, that we are taking these steps to address traffic calming issues in the city, because that's been a lot of, Christina, what you've been hearing from neighborhoods, like you said. It's getting attention. It's gotten support from the FFE, like you mentioned, for implementing some of these designs and test setups for traffic calming methods. So certainly not something we have to have set in stone right away, but would really appreciate any comments or direction for this policy moving forward, because the traffic board ultimately is going to be involved in selection and guidance moving forward.
Yeah, I agree. Does anyone else have any questions for me on the policy for now? If not, I would just ask that maybe we put it up as old business for the next month and see if there's anything that, as you review it, sparks any ideas for adjusting it.
I don't have any questions. It looks pretty thorough to me. So, but if there's anything that you need help from with public safety, I believe I'll be the new representative for public safety. So you can let me know.
Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Yep.
Yeah, I will, absolutely. And what I said before is completely true, right? Because we all know that when there are traffic issues, there's a variety of, hands that need to come to the table, and KDPS is pretty important.
Well, and I think too, in particular, I'd be very interested to hear, we keep a complaint log of, we log the issues that we receive on our end from 311 or phone calls that we get. I'd be really interested to compare that list to, some of the areas that public safety has noted, that have been regular occurrences of speeding or, erratic driving behavior, whatever. That's going to be huge as far as, prioritizing where we begin or where our highest need is.
I can definitely work on getting that type of list put together for you guys from all of our different zones throughout the city.
And at some point, what we're going to need to do, and soon, is figure out how do we want to channel all these comments? Where do they go so things aren't falling through, aren't accidentally falling through the cracks, right? If they come in through KDPS or if they come in through planning, the 311, to make sure that we are funneling them all into a place where, we can review them on a monthly basis or, whatever interval we decide, just so we're not losing anything along the way.
The only thing that I was thinking about with that is, as we're logging those, maybe assigning those to a neighborhood or an area, so that, as we're working through that, or when we're having those discussions with the neighborhood associations, we can bring that information when they're looking for maybe submittals. Just to make sure that we understand what their needs are as well. It kind of a two-way street type issue, that, hey, we're seeing this as a problem. Are you seeing this as a problem? Okay, then you should submit that, or what? Yeah. or no, that's not a problem. So having that conversation would be great.
Great. Thank you. If you have any comments in the meantime, please let me know.
All right. We'll move on. There is no old business. Old business expires after 1 year. It doesn't get to transfer over. I just kidding. Seriously, there was no old business. Otherwise, we would put that on there. Were there any additional comments from traffic board members? Anything to discuss? Okay. I'm assuming similar to the other boards, we have were there any public comments? Are we doing? We've never done a virtual traffic board meeting, so.
Yeah, there was 2 public comments that came through, and I can play that for you right now.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Alice Taylor. I'm calling to comment on the traffic meeting. I have a concern about the methods that are going to be used to calm the traffic. My question is, speed bumps and the Shanine methods, what effect will they have on the property value of the homes where these calming methods are being installed? I would like a response and on that, the effect that these methods would have on our property value where these methods are being installed. Thank you. And I do live in the city of Kalamazoo.
So Dennis, you might want to, I'd be curious. Oh, are we playing both of them or?
I can wait until you're ready for the second one, or I can play it now.
Yeah, if you don't mind, we just
Sure.
address this one first. I'm sure, Dennis, I would assume encountered this as well. I know that from, with traffic calming, with these traffic calming methods being relatively new to the city, the research that we've seen or looked at, there has been nothing that has affected property value. And I don't claim to be one that to really get into what goes into assessing property value. I just know that in our discussions and our research, we haven't seen anything that says that, and that I would assume by making a street more safe, that if anything, it would improve the value, but it's a non-professional opinion.
Yeah, I have not seen anything in the literature that ever said there was a negative impact on values. And I know personally, I first started using speed humps in the late 1980s, and we were doing them in Fairfax County, Virginia, if you are familiar with the suburbs of Washington, D.C. And so we had the neighborhoods we put them in were really concerned about that type of thing, and we did not have any problem. People were happy when we did them in the right place. And I think that goes to what Christina was saying, and you've mentioned, we've got to pick the right device for the right place. And there are a lot of other devices out there too. But I have put them in. We made sure people understood first how serious a step these were. Speed humps, especially, they're a big matter. But once everybody knew, they generally felt real good about them. Never asked, and nobody's ever asked for me to take them out, which I think is one of the bottom lines we're concerned with. And they certainly did either divert the traffic or slow the traffic down. So again, I haven't seen anything in the literature that indicated there would be a problem.
Yeah, I would echo that. We can certainly make some calls, to other cities who have had a traffic calming actions over the last longer than Kalamazoo, just to see. But I think the other thing, Anthony, that you said is right. I mean, none of us work in the assessor's office, but there are multiple things that go into property assessment, and changing just one of them does not necessarily impact the overall assessed value. But we can certainly do that, make some calls and understand, but I've not heard anything about a negative impact on property values.
And I think it's important too that while some of these methods might be new to Kalamazoo, nationwide, like Dennis referenced, I mean, a lot of these implementations have been around for decades. It's, trying to keep that frame of mind that there is a lot of research and studies that have been developed, and there's a reason why these are still in use today. It's, again, will be new to the area and new to drivers, and that's where education and outreach comes into play. But these methods are far from new to traffic nationwide. I think we're ready for the other comment.
Stewart. I'm a resident of the city in the Southtown neighborhood, located right on Portage Street near Portage and Vine. I have a concern of the reduction in the Portage Road from 4 lanes, 2 lanes in each direction, to the current 1 lane in each direction with a turn lane in the center. I have been a business owner and resident in this particular immediate area for over 30 years, and I've watched Portage Street every day. I commute on it 20 times a day. And ever since the reduction from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, 1 direction, 1 lane in each direction between Stockbridge and Walnut, the collisions have just skyrocketed. I've been photographing them, posting them on my billboards. I've been emailing them to various city staff. I've spoke to the police. It's you can't deny there were no rear-end collisions in that section until you reduce the road. The road is simply unsafe as 1 lane in each direction. The traffic backs up for miles now with 1 lane when the train hits, and then takes multiple stops just to dissipate. The Southtown neighborhood even has in its neighborhood plan to keep Portage Street as a major gateway into and out of the city, just like Westnedge. The bike lanes that they installed are twice as wide on both sides of the road as they are on Oakland and other comparable streets, but the Vine neighborhood asked you to combine the bike lane with a shared lane so that they don't have the traffic problems we do. Southtown would like a shared outer lane and 2 lanes in each direction. This is not an area where turn lane is justified or used. This is a gateway into and out of the city, always has been, always will be. So the current configuration is unsafe, and it causes traffic jams and all the extra pollution that starting and stopping does. We would like a more healthy environment with safety for drivers, and bicycles can share the lane just like they do on Gull Road and Vine Street. Other neighborhoods have been honored. The city refused. I would appreciate any recognition that you have heard these concerns. Thank you.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, and I, certainly probably won't be able to address all of it. I guess first and foremost, I mean, while public comment is always appreciated, those those comments are more directed to our departments in general. It kind of falls out of the scope of traffic board. As far as the decisions that are made in this group, certainly, talking about roadway alignments and road geometry is always, I guess, appreciated and something that goes into the decisions and conversations that are made here. As it pertains to road diets, 4 to 3 lane conversions that have been, implemented here in the city and other locations, I think, I know for this particular project and in this area, we've given several presentations to show the benefits that come with road diets and implementation in a street use as exists on Portage. There are statistics that show that, while the number of accidents, I guess there's certainly not an increase in accidents, but probably not a major reduction. The accidents that are happening at the angles with a 3-lane conversion are less fatal, less serious than those accidents that occur when you have vehicles trying to turn out of a through lane or trying to make a right-hand turn where other cross traffic exists. That's just a safer movement. From an environmental standpoint, obviously starting and stopping traffic does, we're trying to mitigate that as we can. I think that by adding a dedicated turn lane, you're reducing the amount of stops. And by adding bike lanes, you're also encouraging bicyclists to use dedicated, safe bicycle infrastructure as opposed to sharing the road where possible. And as far as traffic goes, I think that what we've seen from our existing road diets on Burdick Street, Oakland, Cork, and Portage, for the amount of traffic volume that exists on that road, it's shown that it can more than handle those traffic volumes in a road dieted 3-lane condition. So I appreciate the comment, and those are all considerations that are made, when we're, working with consultants for design or, conceptualizing these designs with, our planning department. Those are all. I think it goes to show, how complicated a lot of these decisions are. There's a lot of aspects, environmental, traffic volume, multimodal use that affect these decisions, and that's why you're seeing the types of projects that you're seeing in the city. So thank you. Did anybody have anything to add to that, or were there any other comments submitted?
No, those were the only 2 comments that came through.
Okay. So moving forward, we did suggest or discuss meeting next month to pick this back up, and hopefully you all have some time to kind of look through that and make revisions or suggestions. And if not, if there are any questions between now and then, we can have more conversation about that. But I think you're right, Christina, that I think moving forward after the meeting next month, we should really talk about some next steps or move towards action as we're moving into a very short and fast construction season. And I think that's kind of the best time. The warmer months are a better time to really assess how effective some of these traffic calming methods are. So I agree. If there's nothing else, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Hearing no objections, we will move towards adjournment, and we certainly appreciate everybody. We will be talking to you next month.
Nice seeing you all.
Bye.